this is Mike with Christian Meds. Today we're going to talk about natural food. This is the 8th part of a 12-part series here on my channel, and let's get started. So when it comes to food in general, there's so much processed food out there and so much genetically modified food out there that we've gotten away from natural food completely. Everything that's in a box pretty much is processed and not in its natural form the way God created it. So we definitely need to be mindful of this. Part of the reason that we're as a society so far overweight is because we're eating lots of calories that have very little nutritional value. And a lot of things have been modified to a point that even when you're thinking you're eating healthy, you're really not. You know, I was a vegetarian from before I was 20 to after I was 50. So over 30 years of my life, I was a vegetarian. I'm 53 right now. So still more than half my life I was a vegetarian. But I would consider myself a junk food vegetarian. In other words, I didn't eat healthy. You know, I thought I was eating healthier than most people, and I probably was. But there's still so much modified stuff out there that you really need to be mindful of what's been genetically modified that you're putting in your body. This list of modified foods comes from veryhealthy.life. So the very first thing on the list is soy. And when I was talking about being a vegetarian, I ate a lot of soy. And I didn't realize how much that has been modified. And I thought it was a good source of protein. But it also has a lot of estrogen in it. And for somebody like myself, that really was not beneficial to my body. So it's a very cheap way to make food, especially alternative meats and things like that have a lot of soy in them. The second thing you wouldn't think about is tomatoes. Tomatoes are genetically modified. A lot of them to become sweeter than they used to be. You know, they really have mutated them into something that's not nearly as healthy as it used to be. The third thing on the list is corn. And corn is also the same type of thing, where they've modified it to be sweeter to the palate. It's not nearly as healthy as it used to be. The next genetically modified thing is sugar coming from beets. About 35% of the sugar in most people's diet. People think of sugar coming from sugar cane, but it also comes from sugar beets. And that's genetically modified food. So if you're reading the label and it's saying sugar from sugar beets, you know that that's also been modified and bleached out of the beet itself, so you have no nutritional value outside of the sweetness left. The next thing that is modified is aspartame. Aspartame is found in most diet drinks, and I try to avoid it completely because I believe it's truly a poison to your body. I don't think that, although it's sweet tasting, I believe it actually makes you hungrier, and I believe that it is definitely detrimental to your overall health. The next one that you would think might be healthy is papayas. Papayas are to a point where the ones that we import into the United States, other countries won't even allow them to be imported. That's how much they've been modified just for human consumption in our diet. So avoid papayas. The next one on their list is high fructose corn syrup. If I was making my own list, I would probably put that first. That's probably the thing I most try to avoid. Anything with high fructose corn syrup, I just put it back and I don't buy it. So, you know, basically that is exactly the thing that can spike your insulin even more than regular sugar does. So in other words, it's been modified to a point where you can run your blood sugars up even higher, and when you run your blood sugars up higher, that's what makes you insulin resistant. And then you end up starting to gain weight because insulin levels are high, therefore you're storing fat. Basically, it's saying, oh, I've got extra stuff here, I'm going to end up putting it right into the cells, and that's part of what makes you fat, is the high fructose corn syrup. Another thing to avoid is canola oil. Canola oil is basically, it's the ratio between omega-3s and omega-6s. It throws that off in your body. In other words, it puts too many omega-6s in your body and then therefore those are clogging up where omega-3s can be processed within your body. So even if you're taking omega-3 tablets, if you're having a lot of canola oil, you're reducing the effect of those tablets. Another thing that's genetically modified is chicken and beef. So basically, when you go out to fast food, chances are you're having genetically modified chicken or beef, in even no matter where you end up going. For myself, I have ButcherBox now deliver grass-fed, grass-finished beef to my door. And for me, it costs about the same amount of money, and I'd much rather eat a higher quality meat here at home than go out and eat an inferior product out at fast food. Now, do I completely stay off of fast food? No, I still probably eat it probably once a week, but I try to limit it, and I try to avoid it as much as possible. The last thing on the list is milk. That's also a highly processed product now. And basically it's another thing that isn't nearly as healthy for us as we used to think it was, just because of the hormones in it and what they put in it, just to produce the maximum yield of milk per cow per day. And so it's been modified to a point where it's no longer the milk that your parents or grandparents used to drink. It's dramatically different. So that's their list. Now let's start talking about some foods that would be beneficial to put into your diet. Let's start with spinach. Spinach is probably one of the easiest things to put in your diet. You can actually cook down spinach. If you put a whole big amount in a frying pan with a little bit of olive oil, not canola oil, but olive oil, and let it fry down, or even put a little butter on it, it's actually very, very healthy for you. You can get a lot of nutritional value, and that's one way to get something healthy into your diet. The second thing on the list would be black beans. Now, when I eat keto, I don't eat black beans. So in other words, I avoid them just because they are high in carbs. But when I do need to basically eat carbs to allow myself to become metabolically flexible, so in other words, my body now becomes more efficient using carbs, I usually lean towards either black beans or sweet potatoes. Another very healthy thing to put into your diet is eating nuts. But have them in moderation because they are very calorie dense. But probably the best nut to have is probably walnuts. Walnuts is one of the healthier nuts. Basically the three healthiest nuts would be walnuts, almonds, and pecans. So those are the three I would highly recommend that you put in moderation into your diet because they are so nutrient dense. Another good thing to put in your diet is beets. Beets are known to lower blood pressure, and beets are also very high in magnesium and vitamin C, which your body needs to properly function. The next thing is avocados. Avocados are very much recommended on a ketogenic diet, and basically, although they're high in fat, they're actually a very good type of fat that your body likes to break down for energy. It's not the type of fat that your body stores. There's a big difference between dietary fat and stored fat. Stored fat, yes, your body can break back down into energy, but the fat in foods is not what gets stored. It's what sugar you eat is what gets stored. So in other words, all the breads and pastas and candy bars and all the things that are high in sugar is actually what your body's storing into the cells for later use. The fat in avocados is what's called a medium chain triglyceride, and that is what your body likes to break down and use for energy right away. So I'd highly recommend avocados in your diet. Another thing that's very healthy for you is actually dark chocolate. And this is another thing that you have to do in moderation. So basically, the darker the chocolate is, the higher percentage of cocoa in it, and the least amount of sugar in it, the better off it is for your body. Your body doesn't need a lot of this, just a little bit actually goes a long way. Another thing that's very healthy to put in your diet is berries. So things like blueberries, raspberries, and strawberries. These I'd highly recommend you finding a way to implement into your diet. As fruits go, they are probably the healthiest and nutrient dense. A lot more dense than things like oranges and tangerines and apples. You're better off sticking with the berries because the berries actually have a lot more nutritional value to your body and don't spike your insulin as high. Garlic is an easy thing to usually incorporate into your diet. It usually boosts your immune system. It allows you to lower your cholesterol, and it also lowers blood pressure. Another healthy thing is lemons. Lemons are anti-inflammatory, and they're also anti-cancer. They actually inhibit cancer cells. The issue with lemons in general is that because they're so tart, we end up loading things up with sugar. So what I would recommend is that if you make lemonade, to sweeten it with stevia or some sort of natural sweetener rather than sweetening it with sugar. It's also very high in vitamin C. The last thing that's very healthy is actually lentils. Lentils are a great source of nutrition for the body. I wish that when I was a vegetarian that I went more towards lentils than soy. That would have absolutely increased my nutritional value of my diet. So that's basically just some ideas. So these are some of the things, the foods to eat and foods not to eat. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great week.